Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
Gas prices on the minds of Americans. Marilyn Mosby, who is she and why does she matter? Bankruptcy for the National Rifle Association. We reintroduce our regular contributor, constitutional lawyer, and LibertyNation.com legal affairs editor. We just shorten it to our guardian of individual liberty, Scott David Cosenza. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Tim, and thank you so much.
You are very welcome. So let's talk about gas prices and the pipeline that was extorted, and then the ransom was paid off. I mean, this is like some kind of Netflix movie.
You know, Tim, the reason why I want to talk about gas prices is because inevitably when there is a crisis of supply of some basic good like gas prices, the people who are afraid of the market and want to seem like they're sort of being a hero or white knight come in and say, do not raise the price of gasoline. And the problem then becomes the pumps run dry because the gas stations have to sell the gas like there isn't this new market condition. There is a new market condition, though. The supply has collapsed. So what should that do? If there's no supply to prices, it should drive them northward. Anybody who's studied markets knows that. But the government comes in with their hand on the scales to try to be a white knight and say that everybody should be able to get gas, and then no one can get gas because of that result. The market tells people through its pricing mechanism to conserve. That's the way you can get people to conserve gasoline or any other good is by allowing the market mechanism and also for maximum freedom. It's actually a twofer. It doesn't cost anything. In fact, it actually results in a greater good for a greater number. It has that effect, that sort of communistic effect. It just happens to operate that way with the free market when you allow prices to dictate the supply.
You do realize that the free market is not in fashion, Scott.
I know that it's not in fashion. I hear the warnings of the various government authorities on the news radio talking about how they're going to clamp down and investigate these errant stories of price gouging. Meanwhile, like I said, the pumps are running dry, and price would be able to control this if people were allowed to be free in their pricing mechanism.
All right, so let's move on to a woman named Marilyn Mosby. Who is she, and why should we care about her?
She is the Baltimore district attorney, although they don't call them district attorneys in Baltimore. They call them state's attorney. And she doesn't like the way she's being covered by the local Fox affiliate, Tim. I think it's Fox 45, and they do stories all the time that impact her and mention her, and she doesn't like the coverage. She finds that it's too critical. And it's not just critical in an ordinary way that any politician hates the coverage that they get on local media, Tim. It's especially critical because it may lead to violence, and also it stinks of racism. According to her letter to the FCC, she's trying to sic the federal government to remove the broadcast license from the local TV affiliate that she disfavors.
Any indication that she has any chance of succeeding?
No, Tim. It's just there to expose her utter contempt for the First Amendment. And she is, of course, a prosecutor. Can you imagine how she finds the fundamental rights of that she has the ability to prosecute if she's so contemptuous of the First Amendment that she sends a public letter to stymie their speech?
Okay, so Scott, the National Rifle Association, the NRA, tried to file for bankruptcy as a way to avoid bigger problems. But apparently they've now failed in the state of New York, where they originally incorporated, which means that the authorities in New York have the right to sort of do what they want, don't they?
Well, that's a good question, Tim.
Yeah.
They have the legal right to do all sorts of things that the NRA doesn't want them to do in terms of enforcing and inspecting the books and their operations. This is all being driven by New York State's Attorney General, Letitia James. And she campaigned as an anti-gun candidate and also not just anti-gun generally, but specifically anti-NRA. And then she filed this petition in August that said that there was sufficient mismanagement at the top of the NRA that the organization, Tim, needed to be extinguished. It was breathtaking in that she didn't argue that there were a few corrupt people at the top, which is what she did argue, that there were just a few corrupt people at the top, that the cure for that under the state's caretaking function for these charities was to completely disband the NRA. I'm laughing because it's so, I don't know how else to react. It's so breathtaking that the nation's oldest civil rights organization, its most prominent and largest pro-gun lobby, would be just disbanded because of a few people who are acting maliciously at the top. If you believe that, I actually tend to believe those charges, or at least think there's enough smoke that they should be investigated. But when the cure is worse than the disease, you've got a problem there. And that's what the NRA tried to do with their bankruptcy filing, was avoid her regulatory inspection altogether, hoping to go to bankruptcy court and then emerge from bankruptcy court as a Texas corporation. They're
and to reorganize in Texas, right?
Yes.
But where does this leave the NRA going forward now that this gambit has failed?
Well, the judge did not dismiss the filing with prejudice. For people who don't know what that means, that would have meant that they could not refile the petition. The judge didn't say that. He did say, however, that if they refiled, it would be subject to some pretty intense scrutiny. However, that does seem to be a best option, I think, at least until they get another maybe kick out of the federal courts. It doesn't cost much in terms of filing fees or other expense to make that filing. So perhaps another bankruptcy filing. And then the other thing is, if they're unsuccessful ultimately in the federal courts with bankruptcy, Tim, they can go to the New York courts and say that Ms. Mosby is biased in a way that prejudices their rights, and she should be removed from that sort of case. And then finally, if they lose all that, they just have to argue on the merits that destroying the organization would not be an appropriate remedy to the malfeasance that's been alleged.
All right, now from the NRA, we move to the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission. They have made the decision on a case involving Donald Trump. What is it?
Well, they're not going to continue looking into the case of whether Donald Trump violated federal election law through the payment to Stormy Daniels. Tim, I know you love so much our talks about Stormy Daniels on Liberty Nation Radio. I've
come to become very, very fond of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you'll recall that Donald Trump basically paid her, I think it was 130 some thousand. Anyway, the number's not terribly important. $100,000 or so on the eve of the election, so that she would not sell her story about their dalliance that occurred, I think, in 2006 or something like that.
Right.
And then once that came to light, Trump was accused by Public Citizen and one of David Brock's political action committees that I can't recall the name of, violating the election law. Anybody can sort of file one of these complaints, and they did, alleging that amounted to some kind of improper campaign spending. And Michael Cohen was actually prosecuted in part for this crime and was convicted of it. So the remaining commissioners basically just didn't have any push to do it. There needs to be 4 commissioners to go forward on any one complaint. I think there's 2 or 3 Democrats and 2 or 3 Republicans on the commissioner, so there's no impetus there to go ahead. It's sort of, the commission was designed to be very slow moving at best, and it's fulfilling that function quite admirably.
You found a way to complement a federal commission. There's
Yes.
a first time for everything, Scott.
Well, when they're designed to be not get much done, that's the kind I like.
The wheels of democracy turn quite slowly. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Tim.
Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Mark Angelides, Sarah Cowgill, Tim Donner, and Scott Cosenza, and this is Liberty Nation.
Now let's take a look at the LibertyNation.com electoral leaderboard. It's still 238 for Joe Biden,
What if stories and legends can offer us the key to unraveling the hottest political issues of the day and apply their lessons to understanding the chaos of modern politics?
Impeach 45!
Only where freedom of speech is honored can people who look, sound, or think differently be truly free.
If you're discussing something that's difficult, the probability that you're not going to offend each other is zero.
President-elect of the United States of America, Donald Trump.
Donald J. Trump is now president.
With one click, Liberty Nation delivers tomorrow's news.
And remember, liberty.
Today.
All the time and everywhere.
LibertyNation.com